My guest today decided to take an unconventional path. With only a year and a half left to finishing his criminology degree, one that was meant to take him into law, he stepped back, sat with the discomfort, and chose to find a path that actually aligned with who he is. That decision has led him to become one of the most respected names in Nairobi's culinary scene. Khaled Allibhai is a chef and soon-to-be restaurateur. Born and raised in Nairobi, his career began in Cape Town, South Africa, where he trained and went on to work at globally renowned restaurants, including the Test Kitchen and Chef's Warehouse. He returned home with a clear goal: to elevate the local food scene, pushing against industry trends and reimagining food as a journey and a holistic experience, not just a meal. Along the way, he started and wrapped up a successful food business and spent several years as executive chef at a citywide favorite, Cultiva Farm Kenya. In this conversation, we spoke candidly about neurodivergence, specifically ADHD, and how it interplays with creativity and the drive to build something of your own. And we got to hear, for the first time, what is next for Khaled. I'm your host, Aishwarya G. Rai, and this is Next Gen Doers. Khaled, welcome to Next Gen Doers.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Okay, I have a really serious question to get us started. What's the weirdest fruit you've ever eaten?
Weirdest fruit? That's a good question. The fruit from a monstera plant. Have you ever seen those? They look like it looks like almost like a piece of corn on the cob. You have a plant here, so like if they fruit, there's like a corn on the cob kind of situation that grows, and then you wait for it to ripen, and it's poisonous if it's not ripe. So you got to wait for it to be at the right stage before you eat it.
Damn.
And it has all these weird scales that you have to kind of flick off, and then you bite into it. It's like a mix between a pineapple, a mango. It just tastes super tropical.
Whoa!
Yeah, very cool.
Okay, I kind of hope this one fruits in that case.
Yeah.
What's the opposite of a great meal? And obviously not bad food, but like describe the feeling, and if you've ever had that experience, tell us about it.
I think the underlying feeling of a terrible meal is just sadness. You know, I think it has a lot to do with not just the food, but kind of the space you're in and the ambiance of where you are, and a little bit stressful, I would say. You know, I feel like good dining, you feel at ease and you're kind of comfortable and relaxed. And I think a bad dining experience is one where you're not trusting of the environment in terms of the food and the service you're receiving, and that kind of plays a part in the way you're feeling in the moment as well. You know, so I wouldn't say I've had a terrible dining experience. Working in the industry, you kind of are less critical of a lot of places you go to. You're critical in your own mind of the food and the service, but outwardly, I would say less so. You know, you're more understanding of maybe they're just having a bad day where you're eating. Maybe the server is going through something. You know, at the end of the day, it's people cooking for you and people serving you. So I wouldn't say I've had a terrible meal, but definitely meals that were hyped up to be something and they weren't. I think is when your expectations are high and it doesn't live up to them. I think that's when maybe the meal doesn't seem as good as it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I think we can all definitely think of those kinds of moments. So from the outside, your path to becoming executive chef at Cultiva, which is one of the best restaurants in Kenya easily, could seem like it was meant to be, right? But I think that framing does a disservice to your journey. And I want to rewind now. You were studying criminology in Canada. And when I found out about this, I did a double take, I have to say. And you were studying to be a lawyer? Tell us about those 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, it was an interesting journey in the start. I think, so I finished my O-levels in school here at Aga Khan. And that means I stopped studying here when I was 16. And I took a gap year to kind of try figure out what I wanted to do, and ended up watching a lot of Suits. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a lawyer.
Nice.
That was it, basically, you know. And I mean, at that age, to make a decision for the rest of your life is insane for me.
Agreed.
You know? You're expected to make a choice that's going to determine the rest of your life, your future, who you are as a person even, you know. And yeah, I mean, at that point, it was a decision that I took based on not a lot else besides I was like, I like arguing, I'm stubborn, I'm going to be a good lawyer. You know, this is what I want to do. And getting to university and going through that process of being in law school, well, it was an undergrad degree, so not fully law school, but kind of going through the motions of what my life would look like if I really went forward with this was something that I was really struggling to come to terms with. It's not at all what it's like in the TV shows, you know?
Yeah, I've heard.
It's like stacks of books and things you have to read through constantly, and it just wasn't for me, and it came to a point where I had a year and a half left to finish my undergrad degree, but I'd kind of hit rock bottom with it. I was like, if I don't make a change now, I'm going to go through this next 1.5 years, I'm going to graduate, and then my fate is kind of sealed.
Wow.
So it was, for me, it was a moment of reflection and also a very tough decision that I had to make in that moment. And of course, having that conversation with my parents wasn't easy. They put me through school, they invested in me in graduating and invested in my future. So it was a very difficult, tough conversation to have to say, okay, guys, like, this is not for me. I didn't fully know what I wanted to do at the time either.
Okay.
So, cooking for me at that point was always something I liked to do. I always liked to have my friends over at home in university and cook for them and entertain. So it's always something that brought me a lot of joy, but it wasn't something I was considering so seriously at the moment. So in my mind, it was like, okay, leave university, take another gap year.
Yeah.
And kind of explore your interests, explore what makes you happy, try to figure it out, which was kind of the step that I decided to take. Yeah.
That's really brave, but coming back to the parents bit, and I think there's some cultural nuance that's required over here. For South Asian diaspora kids, there's usually the stereotype of doctor, lawyer,
100%,
engineer.
yeah.
And you were thinking about one of those three. So I can imagine, despite not knowing what you wanted to do afterwards, I think even walking away from the three big main options must have been daunting as well.
Yeah, it was. And I'm so lucky to have parents that were always supportive of me. It was a tough conversation, but at the end of the day, the bottom line for them was always like, are you going to be happy?
Wow.
What's going to make you happy in your life and in your future? And they're like, if you take this decision, you have to own this decision. Like, do it with intention and do it full on.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to make a decision, you can't turn back and say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Can I go back? It's like, if you're doing this, you're going to do this, and you own that decision, which was freeing in a way. It was scary, but it was a nice way for them to handle that situation.
But tell me about that. Like, how old were you at the time?
when was this? I'm so old now, I can't remember. I think I was 21.
Okay,
Yeah.
Just on the age bit. This podcast being under 35, you cannot classify yourself as old. But anyways, at that point, taking responsibility for, what is the path that you will take and what you end up doing, that is a pretty big thing. But how did that feel freeing for you? Because, wind back a little bit more to pre-criminology track.
Yeah.
That was a heavy decision.
Right.
But a few years afterwards, the power is in your hands, but the responsibility is in your hands too.
Right.
How is that freeing?
Well, it was freeing for me because, like I said, when I was speaking about being in university and kind of feeling like I'm in this box of who I told myself I wanted to be and having to work and live my life within the confines of that, right? That felt very restrictive for me. I was like, this is the path I've chosen for myself. This is who I want to be. This is what I'm going to do. And deep down inside, I think from the onset, I knew I never wanted to do it. But I was trying to live up to this image that I'd created in my mind of this person that I wanted to be. So verbalizing it and saying it out loud was a freeing moment for me. It's like, okay, I've made this decision, and it was always inside me. It's always something that I felt needed to be done. So having the courage to make that decision was tough, but the outcome of that was, again, this freeing feeling of, what I do next is fully up to me. And with the knowledge of being a little bit older, a little bit more mature, of living life a little bit more, I can make a more informed decision of what I want to do.
True. So after the gap year, what was the moment that you realized that the culinary arts is the path for you? Was it a spark, or do you think it was a slow burn?
It was a bit of a slow burn. It was a lot of Netflix and Chef's Table that I was watching at the time. As you can see, I'm very influenced by pop culture and things that I see on TV.
I'm going to ask you about that later.
I was sitting with Shreya, my wife, and we were watching lots of Chef's Table, and it was just, I had this love for what they were doing, and such a joy that it brought me, and I was just like in awe of their skill and what they could do. And like I said, it was always something I enjoyed doing, cooking and entertaining. So the idea popped in my head. Was like, why not culinary school? I knew nothing about the industry, absolutely nothing. So I started searching online for culinary schools in Africa. I didn't want to leave Africa at this point. After leaving Canada, I was in Dubai for a while working with my dad, which was excruciating, absolutely excruciating. So I was like, I want to come back to Africa. I want to be close to home and just feel at home again, So I kind of limited my search to Africa, and South Africa was one that popped up, in Cape Town in particular, with such a great culinary scene, and an emerging scene was one that really stood out to me. And at the time, there was one particular restaurant in Cape Town called the Test Kitchen that was ranked super high, number 27 or something in the world, which is the highest an African restaurant has ever been ranked in the 50 best. And it was the year that I was applying. So I was checking out their website and what they were doing, and I was like, yeah, this is where I want to do my internship if I get a chance. So everything was geared towards being in that place and working in that restaurant.
That's really awesome, because you set yourself a goal, but in this time, and you mentioned, not knowing exactly what this world entails, were there ever any moments that you doubted your decision? I mean, I'm not sure about the roles that you held after culinary school, but I imagine that you usually start at the bottom.
Yeah, no, tons of times. So yeah, in culinary school, like I said, I knew nothing about the industry. You get into culinary school, you get given your big poofy chef pants and your chef jacket and a hat, and you look like a complete idiot. And you go into this kitchen and you're given a book and they're teaching you how to make an omelette. And then you got into industry for your internships. So while I was in culinary school, I was like, okay, let me see what this is like. So I went to apply for a job at a fish and chips restaurant in Cape Town. Right. They had like a nice oyster bar. It was in a cool part of town close to home. So I went to apply and I got a job as a commis chef. Which meant doing all the grunt work, doing lots of prep, working in the oyster bar, shucking oysters all night, like fingers just getting stabbed by the oyster knife. It wasn't a good experience, but I was just happy to be in the industry, And I remember one day, the guy who was working on the fryer called in sick, and I had to go to the fryer, and that means all the fish and chips was coming from me.
Damn.
And it was a crazy busy day. And I remember I was smoking at the time. I went out to have a cigarette, and I was like, I think I could do this. So that gave me a lot of confidence then to apply to these kind of high-level restaurants that I wanted to work in. And then getting the internship into those restaurants was, again, something that my culinary school didn't often do for first-year students. They usually held that for a second-year or third-year students because they're very technique-driven and you require a lot of skill to be there. But I was constantly telling my head chef in school, I want to go to this restaurant, I want to go to this restaurant. And I was only doing a one-year diploma. It wasn't more than 1 year. So they made an exception for me and sent me, which in hindsight maybe wasn't the best decision because I was way in over my head in terms of the skill level of the chefs around me, what was required of me. I went from knowing my whole life that work is an 8 or 9 hour day to doing 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. And like you said, as a commis chef, you don't command a lot of respect in a kitchen. And kitchen environments can be toxic at times. So it was tough. There was many times when I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like really questioning if this is worth it.
Yeah.
But then there's little lights at the end of the tunnel that kind of keep you on the hook,
Like what?
I mean, with kitchens, there's a lot of, it's a very fast-paced environment. And that's always been something that I've enjoyed as well, the kind of the chaos of things, the chaos of service, and then getting through a really tough service and coming out the other end and like surviving it is kind of like you feel this triumphant feeling, which is indescribable. It's something that is, you end up chasing, it's almost like an adrenaline junkie chasing that high. It's very similar to that.
Very interesting comparison.
Yeah.
At any of those points, like the low points, did you ever feel like, I can't tell my parents how tough this is, or I don't want to go with my tail between my legs? And
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they didn't know that I was doing 16-hour days. I was staying in a not so good part of town, and this restaurant was in a really bad part of town.
Gotcha.
And I would have to be there at 7 a.m. And by the time we'd wrap up service, sometimes I was working pastry, which I also hated, at around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Which means all the staff transport had left. And there was no Ubers in that part of town because it was just very sketchy. So then I had to kind of walk home through that really sketchy part of town at night.
Oh boy.
And that, along with kind of like the long hours, just the ridicule and constant teasing and hazing that happens, it's a very tough kind of way to come through the ranks. But yeah, it was very difficult for me to open up to them about that and tell them what I was truly going through. I mean, they knew I had a job at this restaurant and I was learning, but they didn't know the intricacies of what I was really going through. I feel like my mom would have flown down and taken me back home.
I can believe that. I want to fast forward a little bit into the COVID era.
Yeah.
So a little birdie told me about a COVID venture that you started with your now wife, Shreya. Was that your first venture? And tell us about it.
Yeah, it was. So, I mean, before COVID hit, I was working at the Radisson Blu, which is quite a well-renowned hotel here. And I mean, this whole situation of the lockdowns was happening, and the hotel completely closed. They sent everyone home, but without any kind of idea of what was going to happen. They didn't give us any guarantees of you're going to get your job back. It was kind of like everyone was on a very basic salary just to keep food on the table and to allow people to pay their rent, which didn't really sit well with me. I remember going to them and saying, look guys, we can do some sort of deliveries from the hotel. We can do something. In a way, it felt like the industry was giving up in a way, which I didn't like. I didn't want everyone to just take the easy way out and say, okay, this has defeated us. We're done. And it really just didn't sit well with me. So I think it was 2 months after being at home, which was the longest it had been since I came back from culinary school. So being able to be at home and just relax was also something I wasn't used to. Just slowing down was something that I didn't know how to do and still struggle to do today. So 2 months in, I remember I just woke up one day and told Shreya, like, I think I'm just going to make Bao and we can just sell it. And just let's just open a small delivery business. And then we went on Canva and made a logo. And it was kind of this idea that we're like, oh my God, are we really going to do this? And then I had my dad's house that he wasn't in at the time. It was kind of like an empty space with a decent sized kitchen. And Shreya had studied social media marketing. So I was like, okay, you run the social and then I'll do the food. And in our minds, we're like, yeah, it's just going to be like this tiny mom and pop shop operation. That's like, we're just going to be having fun in the kitchen and making bao and listening to music, which it was. But it took off very quickly and we started to get really, really busy. We were selling out. We had 2 deliveries a week. We were selling each one out. I was cooking alone until 3 a.m. again.
Oh my gosh.
And Shreya was putting everything in the bags and making the delivery routes. And it grew very quickly. But it was a super fun kind of venture that we went into. It was a nice, we did it for 3 months. And it kind of came to the stage where we were getting so busy, either I had to open a small restaurant and do it professionally from there, or just stop it entirely. And it was, again, another tough decision that I had to make. I was worried about becoming, again, put in a box of this guy makes really good bao and that's it. And I didn't want to be known for just that. I believe that I had so many more skills that I could showcase in terms of food. And I was worried that if I go ahead and open a small bao restaurant, then this is it, then I'm going to open another one and another one. And then that's going to be the rest of the story, So that was one of the decisions for not moving forward with it. But yeah, it was an eventful 3 months. It was definitely a big learning curve, but enjoyable.
Man, I wish I was here for BaoBar. But
Yeah.
That's really interesting to hear about the reason for not going forward as well. And was this what led you to Cultiva eventually? Or?
Yeah. So during this period of lockdowns and restaurants being closed, one of the only restaurants that kind of stayed open was Cultiva. And I had known Ariel, the owner, for a while. We had been chatting on Instagram. I'd gone to Cultiva a few times. I'd met him. And for me, he was the only one who was kind of forward thinking with this. He didn't give up. He kind of kept the doors open. He evolved and adapted into this delivery model, which was exciting and new and still super creative. So we had chatted a lot, like I said, on Instagram, on WhatsApp. And he heard about BaoBar, and I decided to just go see him one day just to see what was happening. And I remember driving into Cultiva and seeing like guys working on the construction and expanding the restaurant. And I was like, holy shit, this guy is doing the complete opposite of what everyone else is doing. He's expanding the restaurant and everyone else is kind of reeling back and like slowing down. So we had a good chat, and then we kind of came to an agreement where I was going to join Cultiva, but also run BaoBar through their delivery program.
Oh, cool.
Which we did for a few months. And then eventually I kind of just became a part of the team fully. And then, yeah, BaoBar kind of died a natural, slow death.
Death by Bao.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that in a bit, but we have a segment called Still Figuring It Out. Everyone's always trying to figure something or the other out, no matter where they are on their journey, I'm fairly sure. And I'd love to know, professionally or personally, what is that for you?
That's a good question. I think I say this to a lot of people who know me, but I talk about timelines a lot. And for kind of my journey up until I got into this culinary profession was a lot of times judging myself against people my age and my peers and what they were doing, and having this anxiety about not being in the same moment as them, And in that moment, I was still figuring it out, So I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be. And it's only after I became successful that I look back and said, looking back now, it's very harsh to judge yourself based on other people's standards and successes at your age or at your time. I'm a true believer that everyone finds their passion and their calling eventually, And sometimes the people who allow themselves to do that are going to be happier than the ones that kind of force themselves to be in this one place and continue in it. So the still figuring it out for me thing is a big thing, because I believe that people should allow themselves the time and the process of going through that journey. You know, it's an important journey to go through. It's important to fail. Without failure, there's no success, right? So allowing yourself to fail and being okay with the failure is an important thing. Yeah.
This segues beautifully into the next question that I have for you. And I think it's something that we have spoken about in the past, and it's this valley of death, if you will. I'm calling it that, but it's just the sticky, unsexy middle part of when you start something, or when you choose to go do something on your own, like choosing your own path, for instance, right? Where the chances of failure or stopping, being demotivated are probably their highest, because you're getting the least amount of sugar rush or reason to keep going. What was that era for you?
Well, I'm in that era right now, right? I'm working on something that is, you know, a bit of a solo venture, if you will, stepping away from always being in a company or working for other people. And that kind of in-between phase is a phase that I'm in right now, which has been, again, such a massive learning curve and so many roadblocks to overcome and hills you have to climb. And learning how to navigate those waters has been something that's been extremely new for me. You know, during this time it's been such a great time for reflection and looking back, I was like, what was one of my biggest motivators in terms of my career, and what really pushed me to kind of be as determined as I was. And one of the biggest things for me was gratification, not from myself, but from other people, right? It was like, if I work really hard, I was going to get someone telling me, you did a great job. And that was what was fueling me, right? It was, whether that was a mentor of mine or a boss or a superior, it was kind of the chase for someone to tell me, you're doing a good job. And now when you're on your kind of own journey and in a solo venture, the only person that can give you that is yourself. Right? Which is, it's difficult. It's difficult to think about you being nice to yourself and giving yourself these small victories, right? And breaking down this process into these mini milestones and allowing myself to say, good job, you did this, you know, has been what the fuel has been throughout this process. Right. Otherwise, it's so easy to get bogged down in the bigger picture and feel like you're drowning with all the things you have to do. So it's been an interesting process, yeah. Wow,
I actually didn't expect it to be this era right now, which is, from the outside, it's one of the most exciting ones that I'm seeing currently. But we'll get to that as well. Something that struck me about your profession, the culinary world is kind of this marvelous beast that us who are on the outside kind of get to peek into through media, like the Chef's Table that you mentioned, for instance, or like The Bear, or movies like Burnt, Ratatouille, I mean, whatever. They tend to glamorize and beautify the restaurant industry. I mean, despite the fact that it is this really grueling lifestyle, right? The timings suck. You're on your feet constantly, and I see it as a lot of the moving parts that you're managing and communicating through are for this end consumer's maybe 1 hour of pleasure, a good meal, and maybe a good memory. As a non-culinary individual, that sounds like a lot of masochism, to be really honest. And I don't know how much of that is true. Tell us about the toughest bits of this work, and maybe some of the beautiful bits that us patrons miss and don't get to see.
Yeah, I mean, it is masochistic in a way, I would say, for sure. You know, there's no one who's in this industry that has 100% of their faculties. There has to be something wrong with you. You know, to put yourself through those crazy hours, you're in front of fire the whole day. It's hot, it's stressful. It's a perfect storm for everything that you don't want when it comes to a chaotic environment, right? And going back to that kind of adrenaline and that chase for that is kind of what fuels that. I think in today's day and age, especially, there's a lot of people who get into this industry based on, like you're saying, this glamorized image of what they feel this industry is. And it's a very kind of rude awakening for them when they realize that it's something completely different, right? The same thing happened to me when I was, like I said, I knew nothing about the industry, you know? When I was thinking about working in a restaurant, I was like, oh, this restaurant is only open for dinner. That means I have to come in at like 2, 3 o'clock, I can sleep in. That was what I thought it was, right? I was like, I didn't know you had to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning to prep until 6 p.m. to serve dinner. You know, that was a whole other side of it that I never saw. Right. And that's the thing about this industry, is what the guests see is 5% of what actually happens in the restaurant, you know. The process of the prepping, the creation of the menu, the training, the kind of skills you have to do to execute is all on the back end that people don't see, right? And I think that comes with a lot of sacrifices. So for me, the sacrifices were, you know, during this time between 23 and I would say 27, 28, which is a great time to be young, right? You're becoming an adult, you're making new friends, you have a bit more of a steady social life, you move out of your house. It's an important kind of phase in your life. But I ended up missing out on a lot of that, right? Because I had all my weekends spent in the restaurant. I missed birthdays and funerals and weddings because I had to be at the restaurant, right? So the sacrifice, it's a lot on the relationships that you kind of miss out on, but also it ends up affecting the people around you inevitably, right? You stop getting invited to the parties because they know you're not going to come.
Interesting.
And people don't expect you to be places. So it's kind of like this terrible catch-22 that happens, right? And that's one of the hardest things about the industry. I think the thing a lot of people struggle with, right? Finding meaningful relationships in the industry is tough because you're constantly at work. You're at work on, like I said, weekends and public holidays when everyone's out at restaurants. You're cooking for them, right? Your off day is Monday, which no one else has besides industry professionals.
Monday blues are a thing for a reason.
Yeah. So Monday is usually my Sunday, right? Everyone's at work. Maybe you can convince the odd friend to go out with you on a Sunday night, but then they hate you for 3 months. So, shout out option. So that's a very tough side of it. There's a physical toll as well that it takes on you, right? You don't eat like a normal person would eat. You're eating over a sink or over a dustbin whenever you can get some food in because your main lunchtime and dinner times are when everyone else is eating. So you're trying to fit in meals between that. So you lose weight and then your legs and feet get absolutely destroyed. Your back gets destroyed because you're standing all the time.
Bloody hell.
You have to wear the right shoes, but the right shoes are really ugly. So then you don't want to wear the right shoes, and then your feet hurt, and then you're like, "Why did I do this?" So there's a lot that happens on the mental, but also physical side. That's really difficult, right? And then you come home at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. You eat whatever you can, and you go straight to sleep. So it's not a healthy lifestyle, and it's also a reason a lot of people in the industry are, addicts or alcoholics is because it's kind of like this quick fix after a really crazy shift is like you want to just quiet the noise in your head. It's like, let me have a drink or whatever it is and go to sleep, and it just becomes an endless cycle. So it is a problem. It is a problem on the physical and mental side. I think one of the beautiful things that a lot of people don't see is the camaraderie that happens in the kitchen. Inevitably, you go through services that are absolute chaos, right? Where it's like a perfect storm of everyone has sat at the same time, everyone's ordering at the same time, everyone wants the same dish. No one's in control. So you're in the weeds and you make it through at the end of the day. And it's kind of like this relief, but also it's like this bonding that happens with the team that you kind of had each other's back, and it's such a great feeling to feel like you have people around you that support you. Like, they're not going to let you fail.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most beautiful things about a kitchen. I mean, I've made friendships that I'll have for the rest of my life in this industry. And it's people I know I can count on no matter what.
That's really beautiful. And I mean, one thing that came to mind when you were answering the still figuring it out segment was, what are the systems that you have in place? Because high grueling environment, the susceptibility to looking for other quick fixes to alleviate what you're going through. People seem to be a really big part of that, right? And being clear about, you might not get all the invites anymore, but those who are there for you on those, Sunday night outs and Mondays and your team, it sounds like people are really important.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, like I said, the strength in numbers is something that is one of the main facets of this industry, right? Not only in the kitchen, but outside of it. Having a support system that understands, what your goals are and kind of where you want to be is essential.
Right.
You cannot do this alone. You need people around you that believe in you, that push you, that are gonna, give you that drive to get up and do it the next day. The strength comes from those around you, for me at least, and it's always been a part of my personality where the energy of the people around me really affects the way that I feel. If I'm in a room full of people that are depressed and angry, in the next 5 minutes I'm super depressed and angry. So if there's people around me that are giving me that energy, which is maybe a little bit selfish in a way, but it's what kind of fuels me to keep going, right? It gives me that extra push that you need. So people are a big part of it, for sure.
Anthony Bourdain is one of my personal heroes, and in reading one of his quotes. I think he said something along the lines of good food and good eating is all about risk. Food for him was an adventure of sorts. And I think of food as a necessity. As someone who really doesn't want to be standing in the kitchen, that's how I like to see it. But maybe I'm missing something. And I wanted to ask if that quote resonates with you and the work that you do.
Yeah, it does. I think people who eat and experience this industry within their comfort zone miss out on so much. You know, going to a restaurant and ordering the thing you know is going to be okay, as opposed to the obscure thing you don't know and that may be amazing, is for me the right way to dine out, right? And sometimes it doesn't always pay off.
Right.
But it's such a great part of it, not only with the food but also where you eat, right? You can be walking on the road and see a stall, and maybe that has the most amazing street food. But if you're hesitant to go in and even give it a chance, you're going to miss out on such a big part of it, right? But I also think the ability to take a risk comes from having a lot of trust that's gained with the establishment. You can come to a restaurant once and have a really good meal the first time, and then when you come back the second time, you kind of have this little trust that they're going to do it well again, which allows you to take a risk and choose the obscure thing, right? So I think that's built over time. For people that are not willing to do it the first time, it takes a moment, but I feel like, yeah, order the obscure thing on the menu. You know, take a chance. It may be great, maybe not, but at least you took the chance, right?
And for Nairobi folks, tacos at Havana, they do serve food.
Yeah, you told me about that and they were great. Yeah.
What's the wildest or most unexpected way a dish has come together for you? And did you ever have to fight to get something on the menu?
So the process of menu creation for me was always kind of wild and chaotic. I don't think anything ever went according to plan.
Damn.
Right? So I go through this process of where I'll take a piece of paper, I think of a dish, I draw it out, and then kind of add ingredients. And as you kind of progress in this industry and taste a lot of food, you have this thing called a mental palate, which is really cool. You can kind of slowly start to taste the ingredients kind of in your mind and how they work together.
What?
I'm not yet 100% there because, like I said, most of the time it doesn't work. But going through that process allows you to kind of start with the finished product and work your way backwards from there. So for me, it was always a visual thing of, okay, this is how I want the dish to look. These are the colors and textures that I want on the dish. And then how can I reverse engineer that to get to that final stage? And oftentimes it was this piece of paper here, and then me getting into the kitchen and testing it and eating it and being like, this is terrible. What was I thinking? But along that process, there was one or two good things that were like really good on the plate. So it's like, okay, this didn't work, go to the next dish and try that. And eventually the dishes were taking bits and pieces from each other to make a finalized, cohesive dish. I mean, the process has always been chaotic. My process generally is chaos. It's never been a very organized situation. So yeah, that process of failing, but taking success out of the failure was a big part of it. I feel this dish didn't work, but the sauce was delicious.
Yeah.
This cracker was a really cool color or texture that I can use somewhere else. And then how do I move that into another dish? And yeah, fighting to get things on the menu was always a thing that a chef will do. I mean, you always have to cook within the confines of the place that you work, right? And not a lot of chefs get the chance to do their food and express themselves fully because you're working in a restaurant that is, you know, like I was in a farm-to-table restaurant that has a very specific aesthetic. And you have to kind of fit within that aesthetic. I was very lucky at Cultiva where, you know, the kind of border that I had was very broad. I was never really put in a box, but it still had to work for the style of food that we were doing. And very early on in my career, I was so focused on doing like these really intricate, fine dining plates. And I was always told like, man, it's beautiful, but it's just not for here. So hearing that initially was tough because I didn't understand why my dish couldn't make it on the menu. In my mind, I'm like, man, it looks beautiful. There's so much technique, but it just didn't fit for what we're doing at the restaurant, you know, and it took me time to come to terms with that and understand that. So yeah, the fights to have things on the menu always happen. Sometimes they don't get on the menu for the better, you know, and that's part of the learning experience.
We've got one more segment called Delete It or Keep It. I'm going to throw some things at you. You're going to use your gut instinct and say delete it or keep it. All right? Ready? Kenyan roadside smokies.
Keep it.
Generic house knives.
Keep it.
Weird. Meat alternatives.
Deleted.
Your wife is a vegetarian. MSG.
Keep it.
Okay. Hairnets in the kitchen.
Reluctantly keep it.
Pineapple on pizza.
Keep it.
An Italian somewhere is
Keep
crying.
it.
Okay. hole-in-the-wall restaurants.
Keep it.
The tasting menu format in an established restaurant.
That's a bit of a tricky one.
Are you going to offend someone with this answer?
Yeah, deleted.
Washing raw chicken before cooking.
Deleted. Deleted hard.
Okay, we're approaching the end of our conversation and I'm kicking myself for this, but I'm on the edge of my seat. We've been dropping breadcrumbs all around. I hear something new is cooking for you, but I got to hear about this. What's next?
Yeah, so based on how my career has gone so far and kind of the experiences that I've gained, I felt like I was in a position to take the next step, not only in my career, but also personally. You know, I've been so lucky to work with people and mentors that have taught me so much about the industry, about how this crazy world that we live in works. And I got a very good opportunity to kind of spread my wings and kind of fly on my own. And it's something that, you know, for me as a kid in culinary school was always a dream of mine. To have my own restaurant, to build it in my image and cook food that I want to cook, has always been something that has been in the back of my mind. And having the chance to bring that to life is something that's so exciting. You spoke about this being a form of art. So as an artist, to kind of create art that I've always wanted to do without having to be in boundaries or have to color within lines is something that's so freeing for me. And this was a chance that was too good to pass up. So the name of the restaurant is Fable.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, and the whole restaurant is based around, you know, storytelling. Each menu is going to be a chapter in the restaurant, and hopefully the menu will change every 2 or 3 months, and each chapter will be a different story that we're telling. The first chapter is based a lot around nostalgia and food that reminds me of my childhood and my life and growing up. And it's almost, you know, with the hope of invoking that ratatouille moment when the food critic is eating that ratatouille and he gets transported to this moment in time. And I think food has the ability to do that, you know. Food and smell and taste can transport you to this moment and this time. And I think that's when food is powerful, you know. So I really wanted to focus in on what were those moments for me in my life? You know, what were those bites or those places that I want to relive and be transported to? And the menu is very geared towards that kind of feeling and built around that ethos. And it's an exciting time. Yeah, a lot of lessons have been learned along the way. Construction has been something that's new to me, dealing with all the carpenters and welders and plumbers. But it's something that I think has, again, taught me so much. And even though it's a labor of love, I'm super excited to almost be at the finishing line. I'm not putting a date on it yet, but it's in the works. It's happening soon, yeah.
I am waiting with an empty stomach, bated breath. I'm so excited to see, feel, and experience it, because I think something that you and I have talked about is something that's missing right now in the culinary scene over here, right? Where it's just something different. It's a full immersive experience and not just this homogenized menu and set.
Yeah, so I mean, the restaurant has been built a lot around that as well. You know, it was built from almost a sense of frustration of the industry. You know, this feeling that all the restaurants are looking the same, the menus have all the same dishes, things are tasting the same. And I feel like Nairobi is in a place right now with the culinary scene where we're ready to receive something that's a little bit different. You know, a restaurant that's pushing the boundaries a little bit in terms of our offerings, in terms of the space and the drinks and just the way we're going to operate. The whole idea is to be different, you know. And I think it's an exciting prospect to have the chance to be the pioneers of doing things differently.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see how people respond to it, you know. The whole idea is to be different and seeing how people eat and drink and just immersify themselves in the space is something that's extremely exciting. And the food is based around the simple principles of just having good food and good drinks, you know. For me, a good dining experience is, you know, good food, good people, good service, and that should be it. We wanted to build a restaurant without pretentiousness. You know, you don't have to come and sit on a table with white tablecloths in a suit and a nice dress, although you can.
I will.
But yeah, you can come with your friends and sit down and just, you know, have a chill time, break bread, have a good conversation, be messy, eat with your hands. You know, that's the idea. And it's an exciting project. Yeah.
I'm so excited for it.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you something that might seem a bit left field to listeners. You have ADHD. And something that we haven't really discussed on Next Gen Doers is the topic of neurodivergence, because I think how doing and maybe the parameters of success have been explained in, schools and standard settings don't account for neurodivergent ways of getting things done. I'm not sure there's a neurodivergent way of doing anything, but I think that there are interesting ways that it unfolds. And
Right.
I'm really interested in how ADHD may have been a part of your journey.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a massive part for me. Again, going back into my academic years where, with this very structured system of having to be in a lecture hall for 3 hours and listening to someone speak and having a textbook in front of you and, cruising through the textbook and that should hold your attention. And this is this expectation that you have, that you should be able to kind of act and kind of work in this way. That was something that I always struggled with. Throughout high school, it was something I struggled with in university. And I always suspected that I had ADHD just based on my mannerisms and behaviors. It was always like squirrel, just constantly distracted by things,
Right.
and my attention and my mind was always moving 1,000 miles a minute. And being in the kitchen was one place where that was kind of a strength for me, right? And I think why I also veered quite heavily into more of a leadership role in the kitchen, because you're managing and doing so many things at once. There's not just one thing you're focusing on, right? You're doing 1,000 things at the same time. You're calling the tickets, you're watching the team, you're looking at the guests, you're worried about the servers, and all of this is happening at the same time, which is how my brain was functioning anyway. So this kind of chaos kind of fit into the way my mind was working, and it allowed me to kind of use that as a strength rather than a weakness. One of the other things about ADHD is this ability to hyper-focus on things, Focusing in on the right thing is what's difficult.
Sure.
But once you're able to do that, it really allowed me to kind of dive deeply into certain subjects and certain interests of mine. So I found myself, hyper-focusing on, if it was fermentation, then for 4 hours I was researching it and diving into it and really immersifying myself in that topic. And it was a little bit of a superpower for me. I felt like if I could harness that moment where I'm hyper-focusing in on something and channel it into something that's going to be relevant and productive for me, it was such an amazing tool to have.
Yeah.
And I mean, that came through learning how to deal with it, on a personal level. I was diagnosed with ADHD and it was suggested that I take medication for it, which I didn't do. Not because I don't think it works. It was just something that I guess just didn't work for me. And that's not saying that I wouldn't go back and relook at that situation and say maybe in certain moments it's beneficial for me to do. But it was just learning how to cope with it in ways that was empowering me and allowing me to do the work that I do at a better level than maybe someone who didn't have ADHD.
Sure. Sure.
There is drawbacks for sure on the organizational side. I still do struggle. Remembering to put things in the calendar is one thing, and then remembering to check the calendar is the other thing.
Keys.
Yeah, and then always a disorganized desk. But it's, for me, there's a comfort in a disorganized desk in a way. It's like, it works for me. It's just the way I operate. And yeah, it's been an interesting process. I think there's a lot of positives and negatives about both, right? And it's just how you choose to embrace them and use them that matters.
Yeah.
Looking back, I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way. I think ADHD is a big part of my personality. It's a part of who I am intrinsically in terms of my humor and my personality. And yeah, it's not something I'd want to change.
I dig it. I dig it. Given your journey, I'm certain that there's someone out there, either, who's in a degree that they don't exactly love, that's having to take ownership of a choice that is daunting, has not probably been done by anyone in their immediate vicinity, or maybe has ADHD and doesn't see its benefit / how they can utilize it in their favor. To that person out there, what is something that you would want to share?
Well, I think going back to just talking about letting the process happen, right? And allowing yourself to kind of go through this experience and take it in and learn from it is a big thing. In terms of someone who's hesitant to make a decision, for me, one of the main factors that was pushing me to make this decision is not wanting to have regrets at a later stage. On a very personal level, I'll rather take a risk and try than look back and say, what if, I think that's something that I struggle to deal with. And to each their own. For some people who are very risk averse, maybe it's better to kind of stay closer to where you are and again, if that's your strength, then it's learning how to find that strength and harness what is good about you, which is maybe, analyzing things a little bit where someone else wouldn't. And that in itself is going to allow you to make a decision that's strong, that you can back. But I think going back to one of the very early questions where we spoke about how my parents reacted to my decision, and they said, if you're making a decision, you have to own it and you have to back yourself, and I think that's the most important thing, is no matter which decision you make, once you make that decision, you need to back yourself,
Right.
You need to do it with confidence and the full volition that you're going to succeed, that this is the right decision, and you go headfirst into it. You need to throw yourself in. And I think that's a big part of it. I think once a decision is made, it's kind of tunnel vision, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm going to do, almost manifesting it in a way. And I think that's a really strong attribute that people can develop in terms of their decision making. It's just trusting yourself and betting on yourself to do what you can do.
Khaled, thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing your journey, the ups, the downs, the good, the ugly, and what's coming next. We're so excited for Fable.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was very excited to tell you about it today and tell the rest of the world about it today. So yeah, thank you for having me.
That was Khaled Allibhai, former executive chef at Cultiva Farm Kenya and the restaurateur behind Fable, an upcoming restaurant that's bound to shake up Nairobi's food scene. What stays with me from this conversation is something deceptively simple, that backing yourself isn't a one-time decision. It's something you have to keep choosing. When you're shucking oysters at a fish and chips restaurant, wondering what you're doing with your life. When you're walking home at 2 a.m. through a part of town that makes you look over your shoulder. And when you're making bao in your dad's kitchen at 3 in the morning because you just couldn't sit still. Every single one of those moments was Khaled betting on himself again. I'm also really glad we got to talk about working with ADHD, Khaled's honesty about how it affected his life's choices, and how he's learned to leverage it in one of the most high-pressure environments there is was genuinely eye-opening. And as you probably heard, Fable is coming soon. If this conversation is any indication of what Khaled brings to the table, I'd book your seat early. You can follow Khaled and stay up to date on Fable in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs the nudge to back themselves, whatever that looks like for them. Until next time, go do something.